Hi, everybody. I am Rory Stanton from Aila Health, and I have with me today Racquel Dozier from Stronger Than Lupus, Lupus in Color. Really nice to have you with us today, and would love to just open it up and hear more about you and your personal story.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Um, as you stated, I'm based out of Henrico, Virginia, and I started Lupus in Color when I was diagnosed with lupus, and I didn't see anybody that looked like me that had lupus. So I said to myself, I usually say to myself, out of necessity comes creativity. And I couldn't find anybody that knew anything about lupus. So I decided to create my own organization to tell people about lupus so that they wouldn't feel as lost as I was. And that's how Lupus in Color got started. And I just started it as just educational for myself. And it turned into a whole organization to help other lupus warriors, which is great for me because it's sort of a healing for me.
Yeah.
So, it's a labor of love, and it's something that I do constantly online. And locally, we do have local group meetings and things of that nature. And since the pandemic has started, we have gotten into having the online meetings, and we do those every last Sunday of the month.
Awesome.
So it's been very helpful for those who have been, we're used to really quarantining,
Right.
because if we're sick, we always stop and we have to quarantine and get well. So to be overextended in the quarantine, I knew that there was a need for outlets. So we started doing the online support group meetings, and they go pretty well.
What kinds of things do you guys cover in that? Like what do you think is kind of most pertinent to people living with lupus or recently diagnosed? Or do you work with anyone that's living with lupus symptoms but might not yet have a diagnosis?
We work with everybody. I think the biggest thing that people needed was an outlet. Honestly, it's hard to deal with lupus, and a lot of people don't understand it. So when you have someone who is able to understand where you're coming from and able to say, you know what, I know how you feel. I felt the same way. Let me tell you what I found. That's the biggest need. They want to be heard. People want to express their feelings because we're often wearing that mask.
Yeah. What do you mean by mask?
So
as a lupus
most
patient?
of the time, most of the time you'll see a lupus warrior walking around with a smile. If you look at me right now, you would not know that I have lupus. I always put up my best face, whether I'm in pain or whether I'm really doing well. Most of the time it's a face of I'm just trying to get through the day type of thing. So we put on these different masks that we try to show everyone that we're fine, when deep down inside we're really fighting a hard battle.
So in that sense, as someone who wants to kind of support a lupus patient or another chronic illness kind of warrior, as we were talking earlier, what can people do to kind of be supportive when maybe behind the scene or behind that mask, you are having a rough day?
I think just understanding that lupus is so changeable from day to day. I can be well today, but tomorrow I could be down for the count. It's just like I just got vaccinated for the COVID vaccine.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I was fine one day,
Yeah.
but the next day I was like, look, I'm out of it. We all know that once you change anything inside your system with a shot or anything, you're favored to have a flare. So, I think people just need to understand and not judge the lupus warriors when they're down and out.
Right. So we were talking earlier about kind of how you kind of track whether or not you're going through a flare or, what you kind of use to understand what might be triggering the flare. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like,
Absolutely.
what's been
Absolutely.
helpful for you? What's been helpful for others in your community? And how are you using that information to really make care decisions for yourself?
Yeah, basically what I've been doing, and I've been helping other lupus warriors around the world, really, just to figure out what foods are triggering flares. So food journaling, I do a lot of food journaling, what I eat throughout the day, what I'm drinking, because I need to see what foods are triggering a reaction in my body. And once I figure out those foods, then I can go ahead and say, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. This is not working for me. This is working for me. Because one person can be triggered a flare from garlic.
Right.
Another person might not. And since lupus is so different in each lupus patient, it's real important to keep like a food journal so that you know what's triggering flares. We also do emotional and mental journaling as well.
Awesome.
Because it's real important. You know, our bodies are our temples, and yes, we have to take care of them. But if we don't take care of the mind first and the spiritual portion of that, then it's going to be a problem. We're going to be forever walking in an emotional roller coaster.
So what kinds of things do you do for that? Like, how do you kind of help with your kind of mental health?
We do a lot of meditations. Yeah, we do a lot of meditation. We do a lot of journaling and releasing those feelings. I'm a big proponent of, if you release it, then you can heal from it. But if you're bottling, if you're bottling it up, it's not going to work for you. It's just going to forever fester, and then it's going to blow up, and you're going to be cussing at someone, or you're going to break off on someone that you shouldn't be talking to crazy. So I really believe that meditation works. I believe that journaling and releasing your emotions, and really journaling to affirm that you are strong beyond lupus.
Right. That's so powerful. And I think it is important to remember there are people that have, people with autoimmune, people with lupus, there are lives outside of just the condition. And how do you kind of live with, not despite, or, not kind of be so burdened by the fact that you are living with this complex chronic disease.
Yeah. And it's hard sometimes to separate the two. But you have to make a conscious effort. I always say it's not easier said than done. It's easier done when said, and you put a concerted action to it.
I love that. Now, you have a lot of great adages about how to manage it. I feel like I want to take these and put them in hashtags, heard here first. Racquel's got the lingo, so I love it. No, that's really incredible. When I think about people who are kind of starting out on their lupus journey, right, early in their diagnosis, do you have any specific tips or thoughts on kind of how they should approach it, either from kind of what they should get together to bring to their clinicians when they see a rheumatologist or other kind of specialist that helps manage their lupus? Can you talk a little bit about that, or thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, I think when you're first diagnosed, just give yourself some patience. That's the first thing I would say. Because your body is going to change, your mindset is going to change, and your whole life is just going to be uprooted. Don't let that deter you from living in spite of your diagnosis. So the first thing is patience. The second thing is, when you go to your doctor's visits, bring someone with you. And if they can't be with you, ask them, can you record it so that you will remember what they stated, to give that information to your spouse or your significant other, or, whoever your buddy is to go to the hospital with or the doctor with. It's hard when you're diagnosed to really figure out if you have the right questions. Write them down. Write them down in your journal. These are the questions I'm going to ask my doctor. Go down the criteria. If you've had symptoms, let them know the symptoms, and write that all down and take that with you. The other thing is, be your best own advocate. Don't let the doctor rush you out. If you have more questions, let them know that you have more questions. Just take a few extra minutes with me, and talk to them. The more they see, the more the doctors see that you are an advocate for yourself, the more that they're going to pay attention to you. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate, because sometimes it's a difficult task. And if you have a doctor that's not listening to you, find another doctor.
Yeah.
Find another doctor.
I definitely hear that. I think, and some of us, right, like we go to the doctor, we think that they know everything there is to know about our condition or how it might be experiencing our body. But in these kinds of diseases, everyone might have a different presentation of how they experience symptoms. And so
they might have a different presentation, how they experience lupus, and most likely they know their bodies more than the doctor does.
Right.
So sometimes the doctor might try and put you on medication that is not going to work for you. And you have to be your own advocate and be strong enough and be confident enough in your own knowing of what lupus is, to tell
Right.
the doctor, this does not work for my body. Don't just take
Right.
things, that they're giving you, work with them, your
Yeah,
team.
exactly. They also work for you, not the other way around, right?
There you
You're buying
go.
the services.
There you go.
So I think we don't remember that when we go to the doctor, is that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's really important that our voices are heard. And I think, that's something at Isla we're really trying to kind of incorporate, is how do you capture kind of the patient voice and the patient experience in actually what kind of care you receive. So I love that. I'd love to talk a little bit about kind of, how you've been empowering communities of color, especially living with
Mhm,
lupus, and just patient advocacy in general. Like,
mhm.
what are some of the things or issues you've seen just in your own personal experience, and then maybe on behalf of other patients of color that you work with?
Yeah,
Would love to kind of raise a kind of awareness about that as well, and hear from your point of view.
awesome. Yeah, like I stated, I started Lupus in Color because I didn't see people like me.
Hmm.
And I thought it was important for younger women to see
Hmm.
a somewhat younger woman that looked like them. So I've
Hmm.
been working really hard. Our whole model between Lupus and Color is to educate, inspire, encourage, and empower.
Hmm.
And my first goal is to educate the lupus warrior. And what I've found is that a lot of women of color are not well educated or well versed in what lupus is. So we've been working to really get that information out and make sure that they're out there understanding their bodies, understanding what they need to do, what they need to look out for just in case, because we know there's no specific test for lupus.
Right.
But you have the 11 criteria and things of that nature that can
Hmm.
help them. The other thing is that we just try to inspire lupus warriors, especially lupus warriors of African American descent and Spanish and Asian, to come out and say, okay, I have lupus. We need your face. We
Okay.
need we need your story. We need you to show your faces. We need you to understand that lupus is not a weakness. It's just
Right.
something that you're dealing with on the side. But
Right.
we need you to be seen so that other people can come out and say, okay, I think I might have this. Or my doctor told me I have this, but I never did anything about it. And you're just letting things fester inside. So we're really
Yeah.
trying to just, get the whole community involved because it affects so many African American women.
Hmm.
I do focus a lot on African American women
Hmm.
because that's who I am and I'm fighting it that way.
Right. Right.
So, I focus on the education, and what I've just noticed is the main thing is that people don't really know about the disease. They don't know about their body with the disease, and they don't want to get in the mindset of having a disease, if that
Right.
makes sense,
Or acknowledging that this is something they're going to have to deal with. Yeah.
for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Exactly. Because, there's no cure. Hopefully, we hope that there will be a
One
cure
day.
someday.
Right. Hmm.
Exactly. But my goal is to educate you, inspire you, encourage, and empower you. So you have to realize that there are little healings daily from lupus. You
Hmm.
can't just look at the cure. You have to look at the daily healings that you get beyond it.
Kind of like in a holistic
Absolutely.
sense, right? Like mind, body,
Absolutely.
spirit. Yeah. I think that's really important. Being in the Bay Area, we have a saying out here called strength in numbers, if you guys watch the Warriors. But I definitely think I'm hearing what you're saying. It really applies because, when we have more voices toward a cause, right, we get more kind of awareness and attention, right? So I think
Absolutely.
it's been widely reported that, autoimmune diseases are typically very underfunded compared to other large scale diseases like breast cancer, diabetes,
Absolutely.
cancer, just general cancer, and heart disease, heart failure. Right? It's because there is a lot of there's a high incidence of those diseases in the population. What people don't know is that there's actually a lot of people living with these diseases as well,
Right.
but a lot of people aren't diagnosed yet because of this kind of 11-point diagnostic criteria. Maybe they're not seeing a clinician that's well versed in being able to kind of detect that because there are so many overlapping symptoms. And I think
Right.
it's really important what you're doing in terms of generating awareness, especially, in the African American community, making sure people, know that this is even, I mean, I think a lot of people just in general population have never even heard of lupus. So
That's true. That's true.
I think it's really important to be able to kind of help people understand what are the signs and symptoms. And if something's kind of nagging you more than just a day, right, and it's starting to be more of a continuous thing, take note of those patterns, track those patterns over time, and then bring that data into your clinician, because that's the only way you're going to get resolution. I know I'm pretty bad at this myself. My partner always says to, make sure I'm taking notes of kind of what I'm noticing about my body, but it's so important. Yeah. And then when we have all of that information together, like that strength in numbers concept, again, it's, that helps scientists, that helps doctors kind of start to see, okay, these are the trends for this particular disease. And we may not have ever had that insight before. So I think it's great.
Absolutely. The mindset that you have when you are finally diagnosed should change your whole outlook on life. It really should.
In what ways do you think?
I just believe that if you don't know something, you have to do the things to find out about it. Mm-hmm. And you have to change your mindset, and it not only being about you, but being about helping others. So, a lot of people don't want to do, different, how you call it? See, brain fog just hit me. Yeah. They don't want to be the guinea pig. Right. For certain things. But the way that I see it is, I don't see it as being a guinea pig. I see it as helping others, because we wouldn't have gotten as far as we are, finally getting an actual lupus medication. Right. Yeah. If we didn't have someone who was willing to dedicate themselves to a bigger cause. So I'm not
totally agree with that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everybody has to dedicate themselves to a bigger cause, but you need to realize that people are watching you, and if you say you have lupus, they're going to watch you, and they're going to support you in that, in a way that they see that you're sending it out to the atmosphere, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So what would you say are great resources for someone living with lupus to learn more about the disease or condition?
Yeah, definitely get online. But I want to caution about being online, because you can read too much and think that you're dying like tomorrow. So I would definitely stick with some, really good resources like the Lupus Foundation of America, Lupus Research Alliance. These organizations have been around for a long period of time, and they know about different, activities and different information that they can give you that I might not be able to provide for people, as far as doctors and scientists and things of that nature. They're research organizations. So really look into those organizations to see if they can just give you a little hint and glare into what's going on. Then I would say to go out there and find you a lupus support group, whether it be online or offline. Make sure that it's a support group that's going to encourage you to learn more about what your body is going through. And make sure that you're just listening to different people's stories, so that that you're not alone. It's real important when you're diagnosed with chronic illness to know that you're not alone. Yeah. It's like, you go into a store and the girl has on the same dress that you like that dress also. It's the same thing with lupus. Oh, you have lupus also? Oh my goodness, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened to me. Oh great, I'm not the only one. So yeah. I always like to,
you can get through it together kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with this pandemic, it has taught us that we don't have to be in front of each other to support one another.
Right. So that's how I've been able to connect with look at us connecting, right? It's
right, exactly.
You can generate these organic connections just by reaching out to people. I think more often than not, people think that there's this kind of barrier, but I actually think the pandemic's highlighted that calling random people up is like not a big deal. And you should do it, because you would make friends and you make connections that you might never have experienced previously had you not been in the same space. I mean, I talked to another patient, a fibromyalgia patient who was living in the Canary Islands. So, did I think that was how my year was going to start? No, but I think you shouldn't be afraid to just reach out to people on social media or whatnot.
Yep. And sometimes, you know what? A lot of people are afraid to reach out because, number one, they're embarrassed because they have lupus. And, just so the lupus warriors out there, don't be embarrassed. Your scars have healed. and it shows. And that's what you need to roll with. I really don't like to sit in a negative space very often. I understand that you can pull into that negative space because you have to release those feelings.
Right.
But I like to encourage people to get out of that negative space and start just looking at your lupus journey differently.
Right. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. I think you've hit a lot of great points today. I definitely appreciate your time so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Folks, if you're interested, Lupus in Color, this is the organization that Racquel leads. It's wonderful what you're doing for the community. And yeah, we're just so thankful that you took the time to chat with us today. And hopefully we can chat again soon. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yes, most definitely.